because you're asking yourself to play at a level that is far beneath your talent. Because you're asking yourself, allowing yourself to do something that you know no longer serves your best and highest good. There are just simply these moments where we have to reflect and we have to ask ourselves, is this really, really what I want to do? Welcome to this week's edition of the Anika Apple podcast. I'm glad to have you back with me. And boy, I cannot wait to have this conversation. Oh my gosh. So this is our leadership week, and I thought we would do something a little bit different. Typically, I'm talking about leadership lessons that we can learn in the workplace, how we apply the kind of leaders that we are, our level of conscious leadership to all areas of our life. But today, I want to go social. I want to talk about what is going on in the world. And yes, I'm going to go ahead and date this episode because we are a couple days after the Super Bowl, and OMG, were there lessons that we can learn. But before we get into this conversation, I want to send a message from my heart to yours. Last week on the Divine Guidance, I talked about surrender and the relationship that surrender has to God and how God sees us. I talked very specifically about how when we are clinging to something so tightly that God is asking us, do you love it or do you love me? And what I think we have the opportunity to do is to recognize that, yeah, we've been clinging on to things for a really long time without knowing why, without really exploring what is it about these particular things that we have been holding on to? Why have we been holding on to the things that we have? What makes us cling to certainty, familiarity, comfort, when who we were created to be is certainly more on the side of taking chances, growth, change. If you think about it, like when we are in our infancy, we are always growing, learning, exploring. We learn through the examples, through the tutelage of others, to slow down on the experience of exploring so that we can stay safe. So a lot of this is conditioning for us. And there may be some things that relate to, some personalities, and as opposed to maybe the comfort level with risk in others. But I would submit to you that a lot of this is conditioning, and it is what we're taught. It's how people respond to assume certain things, and also in some of the systems and processes that we lean on. So I just wanted to call that out to you in this moment today, from my heart to yours, to ask you, why are you really holding on to what you hold on to? Why are you feeling connected to it? Why are you staying in the place where you are? Why are you choosing to be still or be small? Now, listen, there is no judgment here. You already know. I just want you to explore it for yourself. Because I think when you start exploring, you'll recognize that some of the things that you cling to, you don't even have the why, the answer for that question for yourself, because you recognize that, it's good, it's what's familiar, but it doesn't mean it's the only thing. In the first company that I worked for as an adult, I stayed for 16 years, and I absolutely loved my experience, my time there. There were a couple bumps here or there, but for the most part, absolutely a phenomenal journey. And I remember getting to the point of having the conversation with a really good friend of mine, and I said, it's not that I'm unhappy. I just wonder if there's something else. Like, is there something else that I might fall in love with doing? Like, I love this that much that I want to know if there's more, right? If there's more, what's next for me? And I think what happens is sometimes we lose that energy, that feeling that there is expansion possible for us. And I think having a remarkable life is all about exploring that expansion, exploring the space where there is more for us than we could have ever thought or imagined for ourselves, allowing us to lean in and to explore what else is possible. And that doesn't mean you have to get rid of all of the things that you are like super comfortable with. It doesn't mean you have to get rid of it. However, I would encourage you to consider that falling in love with life is really about you exploring and being committed to giving yourself more and more opportunities to experience, to change, to grow, to learn, to broaden your perspective. So, what are the things that you are clinging to so tightly? What are the belief systems? What are the ways in which you move that maybe you think that changing is just not for you? What narratives live right now in your mind and in your heart that are encouraging you to stay where you are today? And here's the thing, if you feel some aversion to exploring the questions, and it tells you there's probably something there. If you can very readily answer the questions and say, like, I am so good because this is exactly where I want to be, then kudos, because you are likely where you should be for this moment in time. Just allow yourself to continue to be open to the conversation around what exploration can do for you in your life, because that's what it's all about. So I just want to ask you to pause and think about what things you might not be surrendering. What is it in service of? And what could you gain if you did let go? If you allowed yourself to be just a little bit more free? If you want to hear more of my thoughts on this subject, my 49th reflection, the 49th reflection will be out on Medium and on my blog. And you are welcome to take a read. I know you would enjoy it. Okay, so let's get into our conversation today. Honey, I know that if you watched the Super Bowl, and if you didn't, I love that people hashtagged it Kendrick Bowl. I think that's phenomenal. But if you didn't, you have likely heard a lot about the game. But can we talk about leadership for a moment? Because I think there's some things here that we get to call out and to recognize, to honor. Um, it was not lost on me that we watched two phenomenal teams. Now, clearly, it was very clear to me why the Eagles defense is the number one in the NFL, like clearly the number one in the league. And we really saw that. We saw a lot of opportunity with the Chiefs in protecting Mahomes, right? Like there were way too many sacks happening. And I think it's really interesting if I think about the parallel that I see in leadership today. Listen, it's not new to those of you who tune into the divine guidance, but I'm going to say it here. We're in a time in the world where people will defend you. They're going to support you, surround you, protect you when they believe in you. Now, let me pause for a second. I am in no way saying that the Chiefs did not want to protect Mahomes. I believe that as a football team that they absolutely ride for each other. I really genuinely believe that. I think that they have an incredible team. And so, but I want to use this as a parallel to what that opening can look like when we see that same experience happening in leadership in businesses and organizations. We're in a time where people don't feel like they truly can get behind what you are doing. You will be left open. You will be left wide open. And if I think about the dynamics, the strategy of the game, right, you want to be able to have some room in the pocket. You want to be able to hold back the defender such that your quarterback can get a chance to survey what's going on, right? And so that means that the blocking has to exist for the people who are supporting in the supporting roles around the CEO or the head of a function, that they have to be playing their roles well enough for you to be able to continuously look at what is coming down the pike. You need to be able to see that if you're leading a business and organization forward. And so when there's too much pressure coming from every direction, you are going to have less time to be able to make the decision about what to do to make sure that when you throw the football, or in this case, in leadership, when you make that next big play, when you're looking at an opportunity for acquisition, that your eyes can be focused on what it is, the opportunity that's in front of you, and you know that everything else is being taken care of, right? How many times do we see the opportunity where he started to run and there just was not enough support from the O-line to help protect him so that he could make some actual moves, that he could make some progress? I mean, I just want to know, like, did you see what I saw? And here's the thing. If you look at the contrast on the Eagles side, I mean, you talk about the kind of protection the pocket created. Like there was space. Let me rally and take my time and determine exactly where I'm going to send this football. Like there is something methodical about the way they played their game. And I believe that as leaders, that's a really important piece for us to have in our businesses. Have you created the right infrastructure? Do people know and understand the roles that they are to play? Do they understand your expectations? And do they know how to deliver their job? I was commenting to my kids as we watched the game together and when we were watching the offensive line for the Eagles. And I was like, the drill, right, that you do when you are pushing I don't even know what it's called, but the contraption, I should know this, right? I spent years managing football when I was in high school, but the contraption that you push down the field as you're practicing pushing against the opposition, right? And when you saw them line up, and when it was time, when they had break, like you saw them pushing forward as if they were in such a unified and aligned way that nothing was going to get through the wall. And I wonder what places that represents for you right now in your business. Where are there cracks in the wall? Where, when you say ready, set, hut, are there going to be things that are making their way through that you didn't anticipate? And does anybody on the team know how to rally and get in position to make sure that there is no advantage given to the opposition? I just want you to think about the opportunity beyond the game that you watched and see the way that people lead when they are at that level of excellence. And I would submit to you, I loved watching, let me rephrase this. I would have liked to see the Chiefs make more progress in the first 3 quarters of the game. Let's be clear. But if you watch Mahomes' face, he never broke. There was a consistency in his focus throughout the game. And I think that is incredible. Difficult to maintain, but so important. And so I was saying to my kids, like, when you look at the expression on his face, you can tell he is in this 100%, as were his teammates. You didn't see a lot of giving up. You didn't see a lot of, you saw that we play until the end. We play until the last, under 2 minutes. We play until the end of the game. We give it all we have because we came here to do something. There was something on the line for them. And I just wonder how many of the people you support, or maybe even if you look at yourself, do you feel like there's so much on the line here and I am in it until the end? Where are the places in your life that you're exhibiting that kind of leadership? And where are the places in your life that you're like, I don't really know? Because I would surrender to you. If you have some I don't really know places, that's okay. But answer the question. What don't you really know? And what should you be doing instead? There are some lessons here about leadership, because when you are a leader, and I'm not necessarily talking about in title in this moment, I want you to remember that you are a leader of your life, a leader of your household, a leader in your community, and all of the different places where you may already step forward naturally to lead, in the places where God has positioned you to be or become a leader. And so if you think about it, one of the lessons that we can identify in this place is that you got to be clear when you are not committed. And if you're not committed, what actions are you going to take to recommit yourself? And if you can't recommit, then you owe it to yourself and others that are impacted to get out of the way. There are far too many examples I see in the world of people who are phoning it in, who are no longer desiring what it is that they do anymore, but it has become comfortable, or who have made the decision that I'm just going to keep on cruising until something better comes along. But in the meantime, What is falling apart? And your answer probably is the team I'm on, the department, whatever those things are. But actually, it's the thing inside of yourself that's so important. What about when you are falling apart? Because you're asking yourself to play at a level that is far beneath your talent. Because you're asking yourself, allowing yourself to do something that you know no longer serves your best and highest good. There are just simply these moments where we have to reflect and we have to ask ourselves, is this really, really what I want to do? And if not, be courageous enough to say, well, if not this, then what? And do the work for the answer to come forward to you. And sometimes that simply looks like meditating, praying, journaling, exploring the things that you have always loved across your lifetime and asking yourself, how might I make that a career or make that a part of my ministry or my life journey or make a pivot in some other area of my life? And if that feels really daunting, then guess what? Grab a coach, because there are plenty of phenomenal coaches, just like the two that we saw in the Super Bowl. And in the same way, they help you to take a look at what the experiences have been in your life and to see what's possible and to remind you who you are, which I know happened across the game. You look at Andy Reid's face and, I don't feel like I often saw his facial expression look different than I watched on Sunday, but just in it and serious and committed to win. Disappointed and still committed to win. When you love what you do, you show up like both teams did on Sunday. You love what you do. And it's a great example of grace in defeat. And also that burning, yearning, we are going to, no matter what, we're leaving our best on the field. And we got to see the range of it. And that's what it looks like to be a leader. The other thing I think we would miss out on talking about is if we didn't spend a little bit of time on the commercials. I'm just saying, I'm not going to take you through the rundown of the best commercials and all of that stuff, the things that were most memorable and everything, because every single media outlet does that. Starting Sunday night to Monday, and they have all the conversations and all that stuff. And you probably read 15 different articles, and we can all agree that Serena was amazing, but I'll come back to that in a minute because I'm going to close out there on my friend Kendrick. But here's the thing. What I will remember most about the commercials is the leadership that I saw in brands who are committed to gender equality, who are not walking away from lifting up those who have been marginalized. And I will tell you that when I saw flag football, I had tears in my eyes. Because as someone who loves the sport of football and has since childhood, I really thought I could be quarterback princess. And you can go on and laugh at me. That's okay. It's not a big deal. But let me tell you what leadership looks like. It's creating the space for people to become who they have the ability to be, and identifying the gaps and opportunities for where they could be strengthened, how they can grow so that they can grow into the best versions of themselves. While I can respect the football coaches at the place where I explored the opportunity of playing football, I will tell you that one of the coaches who I loved as a person, his rationale for why I should not try out for the football team was that it might make it difficult for me to get a date. And I was like, my reasoning says exactly the opposite. Now, we want to talk about the physical capability. If we want to talk about my arm strength not being that, we want to talk about something like that, then let's have those conversations. But his discouragement was about me being a girl and what that meant for my dating life, which was fine at the time and continued to be fine. So with love, that's not leadership. And every girl does not want to be a quarterback. Every girl does not want to play flag football, but there are many who do, and they are phenomenal at it, and they should. And the opportunities that we want to create for people in this world should look like that, like people rallying to say that this thing is possible, and all we have to do is make a decision and do it. And I watched the Dove commercial with this super cute girl just running. And you can just like literally see the joy in her face, right? And then she turns the corner and they're talking about, I was like, she loves to run. But that by the time she hits puberty, by the time I think they quoted 14, that she will begin to think her legs are unbearable. I just looked to the left and right because I was waiting for y'all to be like, because if you're a woman, if you're a girl dad, if you have sisters, that the way that we start to demean our own image is so significant. And then we spend time, lots of time, trying to fight our own body. And then when we don't feel comfortable in our body, we make decisions. And some of those decisions lead us to creating disease in our body. Some of these decisions create a mental disconnect. They create stress and anxiety and unwell behaviors. They create body dysmorphia. They create unworthiness and complexes, and lead to eating disorders and even exercise disorders. They lead to choosing to allow ourselves to create a costume for ourselves where we feel safe because we already feel uncomfortable where we are. For me, that journey led me to weigh almost 300 pounds. Yeah. And I'm just saying that if there were more places and spaces that supported all of the ways that I looked in my physical body, because if I showed you some of those pictures back then, you would be like, really? And you were struggling with your weight? Yeah, with my image of myself. I was in my 30s when I had the very first doctor say to me, this chart on the wall is not applicable to you. And I was like, what do you mean? Because the chart on the wall is the thing, right? That's the standard for everyone. But this phenomenal pulmonary doctor, who was also my general practitioner at this particular stage in time in my life, said to me, I want to explore before I share, the insights from your physical and all that stuff. I have some questions I want to ask you. And starts asking me questions no doctor had ever asked me in 30 years. What does your family look like? What's the build of the aunts on your dad's side and on your mom's side? And what is, what does height look like? He asked me all of these different questions to get an understanding of what my body physical type is like based on my family genetics. What a brilliant idea. And so with that, we then started going back to dispel what I was seeing on the chart and what was actually reasonable. And for the first time in probably about 10 years at that particular time of my life, I felt encouraged. And I started exercising consistently with a target that we had set together. And I was pretty close to achieving that first milestone to the target when I found out I was pregnant. And went through that first pregnancy without gaining weight until I went on bed rest, which was like in month 6. So it had not gained. I actually continued to lose weight being pregnant with exercise. And what I know now at this point in my life is so very clear that it was 100% to do with mindset. When I have changed my mind about my ability to lose weight, I have lost it. I make decisions in alignment with the change that I've made in my mind. And those decisions then lead me to really good behaviors. And the continued behaviors help me to achieve the goal. But it has to start in the mind. The relationship that I needed to have was one that helped me believe that it was possible. That's what I saw in the commercials. A commitment to invest in programs and resources to help girls feel different about what's possible for them. The commitment to show images that reflect what people actually look like. More of us than less. As I watched the Nike commercials, which I thought were absolutely phenomenal, and I hear my daughter listing out every single woman who comes on the screen, I was so proud, so excited for her that she could see reflections of people that she knows and who she's inspired by on the screen. And I just don't think people understand how important it is to see images reflecting you. And sometimes we get caught in this like images of reflection of like, well, there's one person of color in this room or one person, but this is not that. We're not one dimensional. The woman you see in front of you is not a Black woman. I am not just Black. I am not just a woman. I am a mom. I am an entrepreneur. I am a prophet. I am a traveler. I am a writer, an author, a speaker. I am a lot of different things. So if you want to represent me, then I need to see a little bit more than just someone whose hue might match mine. Now, don't get me wrong. I want to see a woman, and I want to see a Black woman too. But I also want to see the diversity of who we are, the brilliance that extends through all of the different things that we like to do. And why should it not be that way? We all exist in the world. Since when is it okay for things to not be inclusive? There is not simply one version of things that exists in the world. And if you want to hear more of that opinion, I encourage you to read the blog article. I will link it down below in the chat where I suggest we should get rid of all birthdays except for mine. Just think about that in this moment. You want to give up your birthday and trade it out for mine? Well, if everybody is good with just one story, then we should be good with one birthday. I'll have a birthday, I'll celebrate for everybody, and you can just enjoy mine. Will that work for you? Of course not? Okay, I get it. So we need to continue to work to create a world that is even more inclusive. And in the face of everything that's happening right now, I say that, and I mean it because it is a requirement. So consider the opportunity to start from scratch, because it is time for us to change. It is time for us to create change in the world, real meaningful change on a foundation that is not shaky like what we are seeing today. How quickly are the things that have taken years, decades to work into, are they being erased? How quickly? With one move of legislation, we can begin to take books out of schools that erase the history of people who were part of founding what we know as this country, built by their hands, by their caretaking. Let us not forget. But when you build something on a solid foundation, it has the ability to stand the test of time, and that is what we are missing. So kudos to the leaders across marketing who did their thing in Superbowl, who called out opportunities for us to be more inclusive, who honored women in a way that we really, really deserved and needed in this moment. It was big, y'all. And that's what leadership looks like. You know what else leadership looks like? Kendrick Lamar. First of all, Every time he says the line that he's prophetic, it makes me smile because he is. And listening to his music years ago, I was like, because when you know your people, you know. That's number one. But I honor the way in which he story told throughout the halftime show. I honor the brilliance, the insightful way that he designed the show, which really was education, which really was the heartbeat of what is happening for sure in Black America, which really called attention once again to the things that have been and continue to threaten culture. It's leadership. To see Samuel Jackson playing Uncle Sam, daring and bold to take that platform and have that conversation. For Serena to show up in the way that she did, honoring what happened to her so many years ago and saying, look at me now. It was bold to say, you know, I know what these other people do, but I'm gonna talk about it because I know it is what I'm called to do. I know I am supposed to expose it. And the way in which Kendrick did that while honoring the desires of the fans, and however the level of influence and agency is within him to take on a platform like that and say, this is what I am going to do, that is leadership. Because we all know that when you're on a massive stage like that, there are a lot of conversations about what is appropriate and what is not. And if you're a person of color, you likely know that the standard to which you are held in any environment comes with another level of scrutiny. So I sat back and enjoyed every second of watching Kendrick Lamar lead in a way that I know I needed to see. And if you managed to watch Super Bowl and not feel inspired, well, I hope this changed your mind. The beauty of what we are going through right now is that we are in a time of massive transformation. It is happening and it will continue to happen faster and faster and faster. We are going to see things dismantled. We're going to see new things built. We're going to see things that look like they were destroyed, that needed to be taken down. We're going to see things that seemingly sprung up overnight. And some of those things will be because it will be exactly what God did. And we're also going to see some things that look like they're beautiful like the Taj Mahal, but inside it looks like it is in a cave full of old bones, dusty and grim and gross. There's a lot for us to keep our eye on. And what we need to understand in this time is that more than ever, the reason I keep talking about leadership every 4 weeks or so is because we're called to lead. And there are a lot of you listening to this broadcast at whatever time it is that you hear it, who are sitting on your call to action. You've been asked to lead and you're waiting. And you can no longer wonder what it looks like to lead. You have to step in and trust yourself. Some of you own businesses that if you prepare them, yourself and your teams right, you will be able to take on some uncommon opportunities because they will be available to you. Right time, right place, right connections, right relationship with God. And if you build the right foundations, you will be able to say yes. And for many of you, leadership looks like where I started in this broadcast. Looking at the things, the places and spaces in your life where you're like, I can take it or leave it, but you're staying. I'm not an advocate for, just waking up one day and just changing everything in your life, although that's what I did. But I did it in full alignment with God. There was no question at all for me that what I was doing was 100% aligned with God. And years later, for those of you who are like, what's she talking about? I blew up my life, got divorced, I moved, I changed jobs twice in the same year. Like, you name it, it was there. But what I know is that in the conversations I had with God, I had clarity, and there were some assurances that God gave me in a certain amount of time. And exactly what God told me would happen did. It didn't mean that I didn't have to wait, but I have seen it. I've seen God's commitments over and over and over again come to pass. So when you know, that's okay. So for the rest of you who are not in that conversation with God, where God is telling you, yes, blow it all up, I'm not suggesting to you that you blow up your life, but I am suggesting that you start exploring what is the disconnect. Because perhaps it just is you reconnecting with the truth within. And then maybe the fire that you have felt like you're missing will be refueled. And in other cases, there is something else. There is more for you. There is a move for you. There's an opportunity for you. There's a job change for you. For some of you, it's saying yes to being a version of yourself that you never thought possible. Certainly not in a time like this, but guess what? It's your way through this time. I will leave you with this closing thought. What good would it be to be at end of life and to find out that you sacrificed so much of yourself and that you could have been all of you every single day? Would you feel disappointed if that was your truth? What if you were one yes away from creating something that could lead to the cure of cancer? What if you were one invention away of creating an opportunity for an entire community to work at a level that they need so that they can provide and save for generations to come? What if you are the person who is tapped on the shoulder to bring water into areas that are desolate right now, where they struggle to have what they need every single day? What if you are the one? What if you're the one? And you get to end a life and it was so close, but you didn't trust yourself. I don't know about you, but I'm not going out like that. And all I can tell you is I'm just getting started, and I hope you are too. So feel the tap on your shoulder in this moment. I'm calling you forward into the truth of who you are, into your calling, into your pathway. It's time for you to step up and get in the game. It's time for you to lead. Use the examples I've shared in this podcast episode to get you going. It's time for you to do what it is you know you are called to do. And of course, if you are looking for support, there's so many phenomenal coaches that are available for you out there. In my business, I offer Soul to Crown, Crown to Soul, which is a divine guidance session. And I simply show up and allow God to pour through. I prep, and we go through what God shows me about your purpose, about life, about what's possible for you. And in my clients' exploration of where they're getting stuck, they find answers. And their answers come from within them. It's beautiful watching it all unfold. Of course, if that's not right for you, integration coaching is another option. And if you're looking for the prophetic advisorship, like what you have heard me share in this podcast and in the divine guidance every month, that is also a part of my offering. Advisory looks like supporting you in reconnecting to the truth of yourself and to your gifting so that you can lean on trusting yourself, while also looking at what's happening in the world in relationship to how it can impact your business and industry. Advising you on decisions and supporting you as you strengthen your own muscle to stand in your own sovereignty, because that is part of my assignment. If you're interested, there are links in the comments below for you to sign up, and I look forward to being a part of your journey. And for those of you who are tapping in for the first time, thank you for coming. I'm glad you stopped to listen to the podcast. Go ahead and click subscribe if you haven't so you don't miss any upcoming episodes. I will be back here next week, and next week is a big one. So I will have just celebrated my big 5-0, and I can't wait to share reflections and celebrations across the last 50 years with you. I'm wishing you all peace and blessings, and I will see you on the next episode of the Anika Apple podcast.